Andy Dance, County Commission Chair.
Nick Lufus, City of Palm Coast.
Colleen Conklin, Flagler County School Board.
Jane Mealy, City of Flagler Beach.
Dave Freeman, Flagler County Schools, Chief of Operations.
All right, excellent. Thank you guys for being here today. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes for our February 21st, 2024 meeting. Does anybody have any questions about the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Next, we have the general background update report from the ILA Working Group. William Whitson, Intergovernmental Planner, will be presenting.
Thank you, Chairman. The policy group is the overall group in the ILA, the Interlocal Agreement for School Facilities. They kind of lead the charge. But underneath you, there is something we call the working group. The working group is made up of senior technical people that deal with the development process in each of the jurisdictions. Flagler County, City of Palm Coast, City of Bunnell, City of Flagler Beach. They work with myself and Mr. Freeman on what's going on development-wise across Flagler County. And since you last met, this committee met in February 21st, to approve those minutes. We've been busy trying to prepare for today. So that working group met twice. The first time was in April 3rd, and then the second time was on May 9th. Now, the working group took a look at the draft minutes in advance of you. And then we also took a look at something that's very, very important, which is the student generation rate study. The last time we had a student generation rate study was done in 2021 when we had the initial Tischler-Weiss study that set some of the calculations and keys for driving the school impact fee process. So the student generation rate is basically a statistical calculation based on the number of rooftops per every 100 homes. It's going to generate X number of students. And we use that number when we get development reports and then calculate that by the various impact fee rates. So we took a look at the updated student generation rate since we had not done one since 2021. The ILA suggested that we do it as periodically or often as we could. So we went ahead and did that. And JB Pro was the consultant that we had hired, since it was also, JB Pro was also working on the comprehensive plan development for Palm Coast. It was kind of a nice fit. So they have a lot of expertise in this area, so we utilized them, and they created that study. That study was shared with the working group in advance, and then it went forward to the school board for review and approval. The school board reviewed it and signed off on that in May, I think it was May 21st, when that was finalized by the school board. Right now, based on the calculations that are happening in the system, the various rooftops going up, there are 2,466 seats that are kind of advanced reservations, if you will, where the developers pay, and then we reserve the seats, whether or not they've built the units. That's the only exception we have for how we do things, and those are done by the special rules that are in place under the ILA and state statute. The information that is contained in the 2023-2024 annual report, which is the document you have in front of you, was really based on last year's ILA report, and one of the actions that you took in the meeting of February 21st, earlier this year, was to approve the 22-23 report. Now we're looking at, okay, what does that report look like for the 23-24 period? We've also talked to the working group about updating the school board website with the latest information on growth, the latest information on impact fees. One of the key things that we do in the process is every year the school district is required by the state to submit a work plan for the next 5 years. What's happening in terms of school improvements, changes, additions, new schools, what have you. And that report goes out in draft, and we review it with the working group and, of course, with the school board as the process goes forward. Another key thing that happens is in October, we do the official count of school students, and we reviewed all of that data with the work group, and that's also part of all the calculations that are going forward. Then, of course, I don't want to get into a lot of minutiae, but we basically talked a lot in these 2 meetings about the process. What forms need to be filed by developers? Where can they access them? What's the language associated with those? Where are they found, and who needs to sign off on them as they go through the process? So the ILA was set up in 2021, 2022, and now it is actually walking and talking and doing what it is it was designed to do. And it's thanks to the work of the working group and all the cooperation of the jurisdictions that are involved. The last thing we talked a little bit about was the schedule for 24-25, okay? Now that we've had the policy oversight group on the 21st, and now we're coming to you today, what does the future look like? What are the next steps from here? Next slide. Again, back to one of the most important things that the working group did was, as I said, it updated that student generation rate, because this serves as one of the basic calculations in the entire process. And what you'll find is that the 2021 rate didn't change a lot. Over half, I would say closer to 60% of the students that come to Flagler schools are coming from single-family homes. There's a certain amount that's coming from multifamily and, of course, from mobile homes. Well, what happened in the study is the way the statistics broke down in the 24 versus 21 is that your multifamily rate, the amount of kids coming from multifamily went up. Single family went down by 1/100th of a point, and then the mobile homes actually went down. So it was a little adjustment, but again, in the spirit of keeping things as accurate as we can, because every time you look at these things, they change. Their development changes, the number of units change, the statistical probabilities are constant. It's the best thing you can use to make sure that you get as accurate a count as you can.
Now, just quick question, how accurate, were there projections available for what 2024 would be in the past, say in 2021 when the ILA was formed? Are these numbers accurate to the projections, just to give us a little bit of basis where when we see projections of validity?
What was done with the student generation rate by JV Pro is they actually took the addresses from the students that we have registered in the October count, cross-tabulated that with the actual data that's in the county's database for property, and matched it up. So it is as accurate as you can possibly get it at this point in time. But of course, understanding next year may be a little different from next year, or a little different depending on that cost tag.
Gotcha.
I think specifically, though, they don't do projections.
No
for
forecasts.
For this.
Okay.
No, this is just based on real data.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the time,
Yeah.
so they don't do
There's no projection out.
projections.
Yeah, now there is another study that's actually located on our website where we had a group take a look at that. It's called Power School.
Gotcha.
And they did a 5 to 10 year projection. And the trend, if the building continues, is up.
Got it.
But that, again, it depends on that building actually taking place. Right now, we track every development order that comes in, all the permits, and that's how we kind of put all this information together. It's a lot of moving parts.
But they're kind of forecasting for the generation to remain what we see in 2025?
Yeah, we think this generation rate will probably hold for a year or two, and then we'll do it again.
Got it.
I think what you've seen is it hasn't changed
Yeah,
much.
I know, I'm surprised a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. So again, the main thing for the policy oversight group to address today is the actual annual report. as I said, in February, you approved the 22-23 report. What you have before you is the 23-24 report. And if you look at the ILA in section 3.1, it says that you will review and report a working group, which you have in front of you. And we basically decided to use, the working group decided to use the same format as last year, update the data that we had available, and of course, that's always moving around. It's always changing, depends on when you ask, the question. It takes a look at residential permits, it takes a look at building permits for the first quarter of this year. And then, what's in the pipeline? And the pipeline is kind of defined as those things that are on the planning horizon, that are always developments flowing through each one of the jurisdictions' development process. We take a look at the population projections, and we used a couple of different databases for that. We took a look at the financial data in terms of what has been paid into the system. And then, of course, again, back to that very critical piece, the work plan, all of that information is taken into account. And then we develop a work plan for, okay, when should we build new schools? When should we add to the schools? What should we do in terms of making sure we have adequate seats and facilities to accommodate the students that are being generated? And so that's basically the elements and the essential items that are in the report. And that kind of concludes my summary of what we've been doing since you met last, and why you have what you have in front of you. So I'd be glad to entertain your questions on that. And then once I complete your next agenda item, I think I've asked the working group to have members from the county, from Palm Coast, from Pinell and Flagler Beach to present kind of a snapshot of, you can go with the last slide here, a snapshot of what's going on. As far as where we are with next steps, we see basically the working group, once you review this report, the working group would get together sometime in November or December, and it's not exact because the variable here is the state of Florida getting our work plan approved and through their process. This past year, they were a couple of weeks late for even asking for it, so it makes it hard for us to do our job when the data is not available. We will continue to do the October count when it's due, but then the work plan flows after that. And so we think sometime in that fall, late year timeframe is when the working group will have the information it needs to meet and begin building your next report and monitor the process of the system. That means that according to the ILA oversight or the ILA document, we would recommend that the oversight meeting not take place until June of 2025.
Excellent. All right, well, thank you very much for the presentation. Should we bring it back to the roundtable here? Anyone have any questions regarding the information that's included in the annual report in our packet?
Dave Sullivan. Nothing, I think it's pretty much what we expected to be seeing this time, but I have a question that just shows my lack of understanding. Hunter's Ridge, I know that elementary school, the kids go to school in Ormond, is that right? But what about middle school and high school?
Oh, good question.
My understanding of what is happening there is that we still have some students that are coming out of Hunter's Ridge that go to, they bus them all the way up to the nearest elementary school. There are some other students, just a few, but then there are those other students, and we are gathering those numbers right now. It's like less than...
Yeah, Hunter's Ridge is starting to build again.
They
There's
are.
going to be a lot of people there.
I do know we have-
data from Volusia, and we have, a few that are actually, because of the school choice, going to schools in Volusia, but some are going to Flagler.
Yeah, I just was, is there a cutoff on elementary school, junior, and then high school?
No, I would say, because the only reason I know is because I know we've gotten some complaints about the length of time students are on the bus from
So you think
there.
that the majority are coming to our schools?
There are, I know we have students from that area coming to our schools, and I know that Volusia County has kind of put a limit on the number of students that they have allowed. I think those that have been attending have been grandfathered in.
Yeah, okay, so, okay, I get, but it sounds to me that's one of those kind of areas that maybe we need to define that better, like how many are coming to
I think what I'm
Flagler
hearing you
County
say.
schools, how many are gonna go to
Yeah.
Volusia County schools?
I think it's more elementary that would be going to the Volusia County
That's what I
schools.
think,
Yeah.
but it
But yeah,
is
we can
blooming
find
now.
some certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are two schools that students in that area are going to in Volusia County, and they're going through school choice. The last time I checked, we had 17 students that were coming to Flagler schools in that area, and only 4 of them we were busing, and so we are looking at an alternative to that next year by using some vans
Yeah.
instead of buses to get them a little bit
Yeah.
quicker.
Just for information, in that Hunters Ridge area, we defined at the county, there was a place for a school there, but that's gone.
That's right.
Is that right,
Yes,
Andy?
that's right.
So there's not gonna be a school
Correct.
there.
There's no.
And
So it might
so-
be interesting with the growth there to
And that's
define
one-
that better.
That's one thing that we are working with Volusia County to come up with some type of MOU or ILA on, delineates where those kids, where they would go to school.
Hunters
And
Ridge
we're-
is almost equidistant between both of them, right? Is that how, is it?
It's
kind of-
closer for the kids to go to school in Volusia County.
Right.
It is, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Significantly.
Right, it's right on the edge.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's about a 20-mile difference there.
Oh, so not even close, yeah.
You basically have to go through Volusia to get
Yeah.
into Hunters
Yeah.
Ridge.
You
So
do. That's part of the
have
problem,
a
right?
draft we're waiting on a draft of the ILA, or MOU, whatever they're gonna call it, from Volusia, and then we'll be working through that process.
Fair.
We have a similar situation for FPC with Halifax Plantation and the Northern Volusia schools, that FPC is closer and we gain students that way. So
Yeah.
it works both ways.
It does,
Yeah.
but like, think of Old Kings.
Yeah.
A lot
All right,
of,
Old
a lot of
Kings too.
folks want school choice from Volusia County to put their students in Old Kings because of proximity wise,
Right.
it's so much
Just
closer.
one more question on that, then. Do we then, is funding provided from Flagler to Volusia for kids that live in Flagler but go to Volusia, or
So-
vice
So
versa?
think of it, it all comes from the state, so it's based on your FTE. So if the student, regardless, if
Okay.
the student is here in your schools, you're gonna
Okay,
get funding
okay,
for it
just
from
want
the
to make sure I
state.
understood.
Yeah,
The money follows the student through.
right.
Through the state,
Choice,
yeah.
Through state school choice.
Well, we might, as it grows there, it just might be best to get that
That's why we're working.
clearly
on the
defined.
ILA.
Yeah.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. On the page 6, on the population growth spreadsheet, is there a way to put the unincorporated Flagler County as the line item instead of, because right now our total is the total, which it should be underneath. There should be 4
Yeah.
line items, and the 137,400 should be the total for the county, but unincorporated is generating some, so that should be the number.
Correct, and
Andy, can
I
you
just
say
saw
that?
that in.
Right here.
Adam's.
Yeah, page-
Adam
So-
has
Page
a,
6.
The number is
Presentation.
included, like this is what Flagler County is generating in unincorporated, but that should be the total underneath the column. And our adjusted number there should be whatever the unincorporated county.
Okay, I
yeah,
got it.
we can make that adjustment, and Mr. Mingle actually has those numbers in his
You
presentation.
could almost figure it out.
You could if you.
You
removed
got a
all the
little
other
plus or
ones.
minus.
Yeah. Little extrapolation there.
And then, let's see, there was, on the CIP, so we anticipated school needs. It talks about the projection for a new middle school and/or high school to be online in 2930. What determines if it's one or the other? It's an and/or instead of a both, or, and then what is that different from the prior year? So do we know what the projection was last year, and has it changed?
It hasn't changed.
Okay.
Yeah, we're charging proportionate share for both middle and high right now, and believe that'll, they're over past right now, and we're going to zero in on the 29-30 school year to try to have something to mitigate that situation.
All right, and that's it for now.
Excellent. Ms. Thompson?
Nope.
Dr. Jane?
Just a question. The city's Flagler Beach is working with Veranda Bay for them to annex into the city. Looks like it's going to happen. So these numbers that are listed for Veranda Bay under Flagler County will then, the numbers won't change, but they will move to Flagler Beach.
Correct, in
instead
the
of-
next year's report. We've had that happen with Palm Coast, for example. They'll start under the county rules, the city will annex them, and then the numbers will get reflected when they're the annexation.
So these numbers are as of when?
Basically,
Or around.
about a couple of weeks ago.
Because I know that there's a lot more development in that KB Homes development than are reflected
Correct.
here already. That's why I was wondering how old.
It's a moving train, and I think we met on May 9, so this date is basically May-ish data.
You're talking about off of Roberts Road over there? Understood. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's more than one house there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my, I flew over that the other day. I had no
that's-
idea it was that.
Yeah, I just drove
That's
every now
gone
and
quick.
then, I drive
Yeah.
up there, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Just how fast can they bring the fill in?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
answer
no.
was around the May timeframe.
Yeah, okay,
And it
so,
would get updated as we go forward.
okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Any further questions regarding the final report? No? Should we move for approval? Approval of the annual report. Can I have a motion for?
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the ILA annual report, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes unanimously. And now I believe that we are going to move to the jurisdictional reports and updates from the individual municipalities
Over the
and
county.
townships in the county. First up, the Flagler County.
Apologies in advance. Adam Mangle, Growth Management Director. I'm supposed to be leaving in 3 minutes to go to Daytona for another meeting, so I'll make it as quick as I can.
So in other words, don't ask any
We're
questions.
not
okay?
here. That's right. I'll entertain your questions via email. Can't go to the next slide. And so just some summary hits that I was coming up with here. And so we're still seeing pretty good activity is probably the bottom line. And then our feeling overall is that unincorporated county is not generating maybe as much, as many students as other jurisdictions, because we're trending towards more of the larger homes, higher value, particularly in the hammock area, where we're talking about it in those areas in Hammock Dunes. Those are typically going to be second homes or now retirement homes for those folks moving in. And more, they're going to have grandchildren versus children in the school, so they'll have some visitors during the summer, but not during the school year. We'll go to the next one if you don't mind. So this is what our summary looks like for permits issued. I gave both calendar year, and then I did not follow directions and included in then our fiscal year from 2023, 2024 through the third quarter, through March 31st of this year. So that's July 1 through March 31st. And so trying to kind of just see if there's anything that really popped out, and nothing particular. We're still staying pretty good. We do typically see a seasonal drop when we come in just after the holidays. And so there's really not anything I can point at right now saying, there's an alarm bell that we're seeing housing starts stopping. This is on the permits issued side. We go to the next one, and then COs, you can see how heavy those were. And we're thinking that much of that was kind of a COVID kind of bubble running through, because our housing still was taking every bit of 18 to 24 months to run through from the time of the initial permit issuance through the time of CO. And so you can see those numbers significantly higher than the permits issued, but we're thinking most of that is just kind of catching up on supply chain, other issues that have come in with those homes that have been started during kind of the period of COVID. Next one, please. And then our preliminary plats, we have kept these on the calendar year. And so our board had, again, Hunters Ridge being probably one of the biggest, arguably the biggest generator for us. Also Plantation Bay, but not expressed on this one, Hammock Park being a replat. So we're still having some activity there. Next one, if you don't mind. And then this then being that first quarter that we've had. So again, Hunters Ridge in play, 162 detached lots there. All of those that we're seeing in Hunter's Ridge in this new portion, the Ormond Station, are not age restricted as previous developments in Hunter's Ridge had that age restriction. These are not. Go to the next one. Same calendar year feel here on final plats, Hunter's Ridge, and then the others that we have, Veranda Bay, noted for those two phases after those initial ones. And so now I think we have 4 total phases in final plat. And the next one we've got final plat that was very recent here for us, again, in Hunter's Ridge and Ormond Station, and that D.R. Horton product, again, not age restricted. And impact fees, want to give you an idea of what we've collected so far, and so again, still expressing it calendar year and then also then through the fiscal year. And so, and then you saw there on that previous one, right at $1 million, close to $1 million for the last calendar year, and then 584. Again, I know there's an overlap between those, but still not seeing any real appreciable slowdown in the collection on those impact fees. Again, linked to permitting. That final slide that Mr. Whitson had mentioned, this is our population projection from our comp plan. So this is unincorporated only. This is the current draft information that we're intending to put into our comp plan update. And so this is kind of maybe not officially ready for publication, but it is what we're anticipating to put in there, showing that seasonal population, total population for us. And so maybe not any real surprise. I can note here, and just what we expect, you see, I would base this on the certainty of how the modeling works, is that we have a large increase showing in that first 5-year period, and then as we get closer to 2050, it's dropping off. And that's, I think that's just because of how we're modeling it. That's not necessarily showing that, you know, we truly anticipate it. We're trying to be conservative with our estimates is what we're trying to do. And so this approximates what we see from Bieber medium. I think we're maybe just a little higher, and so we're being a little bit more optimistic in our estimate. But with that, I'll close. Await any questions or comments in 10 seconds or less.
Anybody quick, 10 seconds or less?
Where do you get your projections from?
So this was in-house. This is through our consultant that we have working on our comp plan. And so they had used, I believe, American Community Survey information to approximate the seasonal households. And so that was our real question of how that was playing in, because the other numbers, Beaver's pretty easy on that. I think that's what they used as American Community Survey to get the seasonal.
Understand. Any other questions? No? Drive safely.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate it.
All right.
Drive slowly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, drive carefully. Slowly is optional. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next
Well,
up.
you'll drive slowly.
It's true. Next up, City of Palm Coast.
How's everyone doing? My name's Ray Tyner. I'm the Deputy Chief Development Officer for the City of Palm Coast. Good to be here this afternoon. City of Palm Coast, we continue to grow, just like everybody else in Flagler County. What you're looking at here is our residential building permits that we have issued. For 2023, you can see that we have issued 1,339 single-family detached dwelling units. It's interesting, 245 of those, we're still seeing the majority of our single-family units in our original ITT, 47,000 platted single-family lots. So a lot of our growth still is happening within our core area of Palm Coast. We've got our townhouse duplex, we've got about 266, 2023 multifamily dwelling units at 526. So during 2023, we have permitted over 2,000 units. You can look at from January to March of this year, we're about 480. So we're still kind of on track to what we were doing last year. This is the certificate of occupancies, and what a CO is, that's when the unit is constructed, built, someone's ready to move in. So, very similar numbers we had in 2023. We did 1933. Majority of those, you can see a lot of them in the ITT lot area. Townhouse and duplex, 407. Started to get some multifamily dwelling units. We did 300 COs last year in 2023. So total units, 2,640. For 2024, thus far from January to March, we did about 534. next slide. So as of the activity that we're seeing, just recent activity from January to March of this year, town center still, we're seeing a lot of activity in our town center project. We have the promenade. It's a mixed-use building. We're going to have a multifamily with on the top with non-residential on the bottom. That's going to have about 240 units. Enclave is a preliminary plat that we're working on right now. They received the development order. They're working on their final plat. They're at 182 units. Similar Palms, the townhouse product, they're at their preliminary plat stage. They're at 78 units. Sawmill Branch, which is part of Palm Coast Park, they have 278 units. We're at a subdivision master plan, so there's 2 more steps to go. So we have a total of 742 units with some sort of approval with the first quarter, annual quarter of 2024. Just note too, I mean, when people see 742, it takes a while, you know, the plans, the infrastructure needs to put in place, and you're looking at maybe a 3 to 5% growth rate of those numbers per year. So it's going to take some time for those to be built out. I'm here for any questions on growth of Palm Coast. You guys can.
So all the hysteria that we read about in the paper, Palm Coast is building 9,000 units here and 3,000 units there, and that's all going to take a lot of time.
Yeah.
So those numbers are in no way reflected in any.
Absolutely. So when you think about it, right, because it really is an interesting dynamic how you're like, oh my God, all these units, right? So when you think about IT&T, when they platted and they started their development in Palm Coast, they platted 47,000 platted single-family lots in the early 80s, right? We're already at 2024, and we still have over 20% that hasn't built out yet. So, I mean, put that in perspective. You're absolutely right. It takes time for development to occur and to build out.
And when you look at the COs, we are growing at about half the rate of 2005, 2006, 2007.
Yeah, we're not crazy like we were.
Yeah.
So I guess my question really is, at what point does the school board need to say, hey, X number of kids is coming because of that?
Well, I think that's why I think this group and the working group is crucial that we meet on an annual basis, and the coordination that we have with all the municipalities in the county, and we coordinate to make sure that we have, you know, capacity and we're all working together.
So we should really be looking at the numbers 2 slides ago, right? The earlier slide. That you
Yeah,
showed.
that too.
The CO, yeah, the permits and the CO.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Yeah, just for in Palm Coast, I mean, we also hear a lot about westward expansion. Of the houses you just put up there, of the lots and possibilities, how much of that is westward expansion?
None of that there is westward expansion. We have the DRI, Development Regional Impact, off of US 1, where you still see some cows. And you see a lot of activity there, single family.
Yeah, I guess my point on that is we still have a lot of movement to the south, a lot of build in the south when we're looking at possible new schools and things like that. I would be a little hesitant before I would commit new schools and stuff to westward expansion, so we make sure we've covered everything from, say, Palm Coast Parkway south.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for staff, and please, you guys are welcome to join in, but I mean, they're watching those numbers all the time to see where the concentration of students really are, even with those mitigation
100, you know,
shares.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of movement in the city.
And I think people are freaking out because they're seeing the buildings going up. It's not even so much looking at the permits, right? They're seeing massive building projects taking place and popping up.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? No? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Nailed it. All right, next, City of Benel?
Hello, Joe Parsons, Community Development Director. Happy to be here as well. So here's our population growth over the last few years. We don't have projected growth. Palm Coast, thank you again for raising the bar for everybody. We didn't have presentations at the last meeting, and you showed us up, so. But we're stepping up, so thank you. We have a presentation. But these are, and Flagler County, I suppose, right, they had their projected growth. So these are our existing population trend as we can see over the last few years. Next slide. All right, last fiscal year, we had 72 single-family homes and 9 mobile homes that were built. And then this year, first quarter, we have 2 single-family residential and 1 mobile home. And so what we see there, the discrepancy is Grand Reserve, right? That's where the majority of our homes are being built right now. And so there was a phase that opened up last year, and that phase was constructed and completed. And so no more permits coming from there. But we've got 2 phases that are in the works, and we'll start seeing those move on. Next slide. Stillwell Apartments, they are received approval for building permit, and we're still working with them to get that the ball rolling on that. They're looking at the economy and things like that to make sure that it makes sense for them to move forward. And that's 240 units.
Where's that going?
That is going to be west of Belfair,
Okay.
north of 100. I'd say there's a storage complex
Okay.
to the east of the storage
yeah.
complex and to the west of Palm Point
Okay.
apartment complex.
Got you.
It's a pretty safe bet saying that it's next to the storage place too.
Yeah.
That could be lots of places.
So so again, Grand Reserve, we got phases 5 and 6, 112 and 141 units. Those are in the works. Phoenix Crossing is in review right now, 28 apartments. And then, next slide. Reserve of Hub Creek, which is, of course, on the headlines for everybody, 6,000, 8,000 single-family and multifamily residential. So that's
Hard to picture.
yeah. It's
Which is going to happen first?
So is that a
Westward
change from
expansion.
agricultural to residential? Or is it already residential?
It is agricultural, so they're going through comp plan change right now.
Okay.
Comp plan amendment.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. Any questions?
I just wanted to add that, Pete Young, City Commissioner, but now I just want to add that I wish the public would come to these meetings because they keep on accusing us of overbuilding Flagler County, and every time we get a developer coming into Flagler County and want to build in Bunnell, public gets, and we welcome all the residents from Palm Coast in the county and in the city of Bunnell, but they keep on saying that, we can't have no more people come into this area. The traffic's terrible. And all we did is have 2 houses built this year so far, And I just say, I wish they would come and sit in this meeting, and I think that they'd have a different idea. But I said, we're not doing any building yet, we haven't done nothing. But that's it. I wish, I wish I could see some more businesses and jobs come into this county instead of just all houses, but so be it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next up, City of Flagler Beach. 17,000 units.
That's my fault for annexing 100,000 acres.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Karen Miller, City of Flagler Beach, I'm the CRA Director and working group person representing the city. And yes, I agree with you. Palm Coast and the county outdid us last time, and then when Bunnell jumped in, I said, I guess I gotta do it too. So, anyway, next slide, please. Mine is really short and sweet, but I'm glad that Commissioner Neely brought something up that I want us to touch base on when I'm done. Total residential building permits from January, as you can, through December 31st, as you can see, 33, 2 mobile homes, 241 multifamily units, which were the apartments that were just completely CO'd, which are done. Building permits from January through March, 23 single family and 1 mobile home. Some of those are from KB Homes. There are still quite a few that still need to be built, but we do have reservations for all of them. So that doesn't mean,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they're done. The reservations are there. It's just a matter of them building them. Next slide, please. News of residential developments approved in concept. Legacy Point Cottages, which were going to be apartments, they have changed their mind. They are going to be 22 single-family cottages that are being proposed. It is actually due to go to the Planning and Architectural Review Board, hopefully in July. We just finally hired a planner. So that is right now the biggest. Our population growth and our trends are very, very small. Let's face it, the island's built out. Our average permits per year on the island is maybe 32 to 42 single-family residentials. And our lots are very few. However, if Miranda Bay comes in, then our population growth is going to change, absolutely going to change. But I just wanted to clarify that part about KB Homes.
So those kids are already accounted for?
Those kids are already accounted
Okay,
for. It's
thank
just a
you.
matter of the building actually taking place.
Where's the Legacy Point Cottages
Yeah.
going?
It's going to be behind CVS on the corner of 100 and...
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's going to be a nice location.
Okay.
So,
Excellent. Any questions, comments,
questions?
concerns? No? Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. And I would just like to commend everyone in the working group. Thank you guys, everyone working collaboratively and successfully. Much appreciated. Makes our lives easier up here. Next item, we're going to discuss our schedule and tentatively set up our next meeting. How do you guys feel about June 2025? Is that our target date here? It is.
Sounds good.
Any specific date in June that we want to try to target, or we're just putting it out there as June?
Normally, I won't be
Second,
here.
yes,
but,
potentially, yeah.
That's usually the week we have our FACT, Florida Association of Counties annual meeting in
Okay.
Orlando.
Last week of
Gotcha.
June.
That week.
Yeah,
So we might want to look at that.
okay. Get that on the calendar. You want to do second week of June? Is that a little bit more ideal? Do we try to hone in on it as we get closer?
I would say probably,
Third.
I mean, since we're not going to be here,
Right.
but I would kind of recommend maybe as you get closer, because I
Yeah.
do know the Florida School Board Association and the Superintendent's Conference is in June as well, so.
We
once
probably
you have
know the
those
dates right now.
I don't know.
I mean, somebody does.
Yeah.
FACT might know.
What do you think, Mr. Whitson? Any suggestions? Second week of June, if you want to try to tentatively set that up now, and then as we get closer?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think you can target that week, but what we do is we coordinate with all your staffs.
Yeah.
And we get your calendars in advance, and then we try to look, that's why we landed on this date.
Perfect, okay.
So we will do that coordination for you.
Gotcha, but everyone in general is okay with June? Fair. Okay, so we can move on from
It's
that.
100 years from now.
Right, I feel you. I think I'm busy on the first Thursday. The next item we have, are any new business from any of our members here that we'd like to discuss?
I have some questions, but they're kind of generic and they're not for one particular body, but really everybody. And I don't know if this is even where you would ask those kinds of questions. Well, one, I noticed that a lot of the data that we've received was really the first quarter. And we're at really June, we're at almost the end of June. So I was wondering if each entity could update the data so that we would have the full year picture from July 23 to June 30th, 2024.
Yeah, we absolutely do that. That's, remember the slide where I was talking about the coordination between, yeah, they're always sending me the information, you know, and we kind of update it as we go. And so what we were able to just, we have to pick a cutoff.
Sure, of course.
And so that's why it's.
I don't know if the other members would be interested in seeing it, but I know I would like to see the completed picture.
Yeah, we could true that up and send it to you.
Okay.
Great idea, kind of create like a living document.
Yeah,
almost,
some
something
see,
we'll update.
yes.
For sure.
The other is, and again, I'm not sure who this goes to, but I know all of us have been feeling the pressure and hearing the conversations in the community and the concerns the community has about building and the rate of building. And some of the practices in the development of those neighborhoods, right? The clear cutting, if you will, of trees. And I don't know about all of you, but I know we've had the conversation at our school board meetings that, you know, when we get these agreements in front of us, really kind of you feel like your hands are tied. You can't really vote against them. Well, you could, but it's not really gonna matter, right? And so, some of the conversations that I've been hearing do the municipalities, because the school board, I wouldn't have any skin in the game to be able to make those kind of recommendations, but do the municipalities and the county have the ability to say, in regards to massive developments occurring, there is an expectation that X number of trees are gonna be left, right? Or trees of a certain height, or of a certain age, or a certain type are gonna be preserved, right? You see the clear cutting happening, like on John Anderson, of 100-year-old oak trees. You're never replacing those, ever. Is there a reason to just clear cut? And is there an opportunity for government to say, you can clear cut, you can cut, but we expect for X% of trees to be left on the property? Or if a tree is X 100 years old, that does government have any ability to define how those things take place?
Mr. Turner.
Can I respond?
Sure, Jane, absolutely, yes, Commissioner.
A couple of things. First of all, last year, the state legislature, in their infinite wisdom, said we can have no control over trees.
They know better.
But then they took that back. So, for a
Okay,
year-
so they took it back.
For a year, yeah, they took
Okay,
it back.
okay.
For a year, we had no control. So then we could go back to whatever our local ordinances were. Yes, we all have different ordinances, and we affect each other. I know when, and don't take this personally, Nick, but when Palm Coast took over the rest of Roberts Road, and they're now clear cutting
Yeah.
and burning the trees right there,
Yep.
we suffered,
Sure.
inordinately so. I mean, people couldn't breathe.
Yeah, I live
But
right next.
we are having what used to be monthly, then became quarterly, now I think becoming semi-annual meetings amongst all the governments. And what can we do to help our neighbors? You know, we're not going to stop building.
No, I understand that,
Yeah,
right? Like, but how do we do it responsibly?
But how does what Palm Coast does affect Flagler Beach? What Flagler Beach does affect the county, you know?
Right.
So we're trying. Nobody wants to give up their turf, but we are trying. And I think at this point, that's about all we can do. I don't know if there's more that other people want to say.
I mean, the reality is that a lot of times if they need to fill the site, you can't, if you fill next to a tree that exists, you kill the tree.
Yeah.
So if they have to put 3 feet of fill or 4 feet of fill on a site, there's not a real easy way to keep a tree. Now.
Yes,
you're-
there is. Flagler Beach has
You did?
managed to
Okay.
allow people to keep
Most-
trees.
It's hard to do that. But the other thing is, the local governments can have, you can say if you're taking down this many caliper trees, you gotta put up so many trees, that's.
No,
pretty
I've
normal
heard that, right?
throughout
But
the-
how do you?
Ray, you wanna
Yeah,
address that?
that's normal throughout the state.
I just wanted to just clarify, so, the oversight committee, I know we're looking at when to build a school and what type of school. Do we have any, do we also recommend locations for the schools on this committee? And another thing is, you know, I think Bunnell is due to grow, and we've, in the future, and the only way we can grow is if we get developers to pitch in on certain things like utilities and so forth. Otherwise, the state won't allow us to grow. So with that, if we have development and they want to donate land or donate to build a school, is that something that we look at also in this committee
I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope
in the
that.
future?
I mean, that's the last little thing I was gonna kind of plant a seed with all of you as municipalities.
Do we work with intergovernmentally to be able to say, hey, potential for land opportunity from one of these developers? Do we do that today?
Yeah, the working group looks at all of that. We're gathering the data. It's constantly moving. and we talk to each other, that's, you
Yeah.
know,
Would you say the best avenue is to get as much information to you as quickly as possible, if
we're
anything like
doing
that?
all of that, and we're taking a look at, okay, where the growth is happening, these hot spots, and then you have existing schools, and then we're gonna be working through our process and then bringing it to the school board and then ultimately through this group. So, yeah, we're in the process of doing that, and the horizon we've selected, based on the data we have, is 2930 for any kind of new facility change. We're already adding on to existing facilities as we speak, but the new growth or new schools, should they come about, are going to be in that 29 to 30, 31 timeframe.
So what we do when that comes about before the board, the city board, and we got a developer that's willing to furnish either property for a school or furnish a school, do we go to the school board to find out if
Yeah.
it's feasible?
Yeah, and that would be great. I mean, that was
Well-
one of the things ITT did that really set, I think, Flagler County apart from many, many other
Yeah.
communities, is the donation of that land for future school use. So even though we may not have a need today, or even a need in 29, 30, if a developer is willing to set aside land for a school, I can't imagine that we would not.
I'm sorry to say, but the way that everything works today, we don't no longer get a donated site. The law requires we provide a impact fee credit, dollar for dollar, for the value of the land.
Oh, wow.
And so if the land, it's not a donation to us.
Is that statute?
Yes.
So statute says if a developer comes in and says, we want to give you 40 acres for a school, you can't accept it in
We can-
lieu of impact fees?
We can accept it, but we have to give that developer an equal amount of impact fees.
Sure.
Equal to the fair market value. The problem is if the fair market value exceeds the impact fees that they're ever gonna pay, the law also says impact fees are saleable and transferable. So then we create a secondary impact fee market, which I don't think is a good idea for any of us.
Is the whole
And so
idea of
we're-
that to eliminate a quid pro quo of a developer donating land? or
Well,
something like that?
I'm not gonna get into why.
Fair, okay.
The state knows better,
Yeah.
apparently, than we do.
They always do.
They always do. And so unfortunately, in this event, the school districts throughout the state used to be able to charge a mitigation fee, a true mitigation fee, that really came in and went towards something and didn't have to be given a credit towards impact fees. And we could take a donation of land from a larger development that, again, would help us provide those schools. But now, with that limitation, it has to make sense for us. We have to do, not only does it have to make sense from a, busing and is it the right place and all those kind of things, it also has to make sense from a.
Well, that's another question I had. I said, do we make a recommendation on location of school? Like, some of our schools are right now, and I'm not gonna mention any of them, but are in bad locations for the traffic wise and, picking up the kids and, but this committee make a recommendation if it's gonna be either in a neighborhood, or is it gonna be an industrial park, or is it gonna be on a major road? And do we do that, or do we just leave it up to the school board to decide where that school is gonna be?
I mean, I don't think it's this committee. I think if the district was looking at a school site in the county or the city or your city, I think the school district would work with you. And obviously, there's lots of lessons learned from all the schools that have been built here and all over the state, so.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the newer ones will take into account all those lessons learned.
Yeah, I think it has to make sense on where the growth is.
Yeah.
And does it make sense to have two elementary schools, say, right next to one another? Maybe not. So we have to look at all those things, and that's something that falls to the school board, I
Yeah,
believe.
I mean, I think there's definitely some frustration, and I'm sure people who don't know the history of the county kind of scratch their head, like, why in the world would they put two schools that close together, right? Well, a lot of that land was donated to us.
Yeah.
So you use what you have at that time. I think moving forward, a lot of that is driven by exactly what was said. You're looking at population trends and growth trends, and then the impact this committee, I think, is tracking where larger developments are happening. So as we learn where larger developments are happening, that definitely plays a role in the conversation about where a future school would go. But I think that, what we've heard in the past, we've had some developers want to come forward and maybe build a smaller community school. You know, if they're looking, I remember, what was that, Andy, Palm West initially was looking at doing that. That's how we ended up with that land.
I don't know. if
Palm
I'm-
West is down on US 1. Is that Palm West?
I'm not following, I don't know.
The developer, anyway, when they came along, they basically had a section of their development that they were looking to dedicate to a school, that a school would be developed for their community.
Kind of like Hunter's Ridge.
Yeah,
And that's,
Yeah.
yes, it really, yeah.
Yeah.
Really
Well,
is.
the old DRIs in the day, that was pretty standard.
Yep.
The large DRIs
Yep.
that were on the west side of the county. But it's, I think one of the helpful part for this committee is compiling all this information so it gives the school district some direction on where the growth trends are.
Totally.
So that helps. And speaking of Bunnell, I know this isn't addressed till the PUD, but Joe, do you know an estimate on how many students would be generated from the preserve? Has that been looked at?
That's not counted.
Too early, okay. Gotcha.
We have some preliminary numbers. Can't remember what those were off the top of my head, but we do, based upon the new generation rate, the 24, we have looked at that.
Yeah, because it has a potential to impact.
Yeah, and then I know community members out there are very interested to know what the student ratio and what the impact of student generation is going to be out there.
Well, that's the first thing when we have, in the future, when we have developers come in, that's what the people say, you know, how we're gonna, you know, where's all the kids going to school at, you know, so.
It's a good question.
That is a good question, absolutely. Ray, did you want to come up and address, or you think we've moved past that?
Yeah, I think we passed.
Fair enough.
What, the trees? No, we didn't move past that. I
No?
want to hear.
No? All right, Ray, then you got called out. Here we go.
Nice,
Crazy.
nice
Bring it
try.
back, E-break. Full E-break. No.
No, because it just feels like none of us have any control, and I don't know if that's true or not.
No, you know, the city of Palm Coast, there are regulatory controls that we have, and you're right, the law passed several years ago about trimming trees, and if somebody wants an individual tree cut down, the state, if an arborist says they can cut it down, you can. We don't have any jurisdiction over that, but when it comes to new development, you know, our land development code, for example, we do protect, we call them specimen historical trees. So our code is geared to trying to save as many of these historical and specimen trees as we can. Then we have mitigation requirements, you know, if they cannot meet that. Some other regulatory things that we have in our land development code is clustering. So a lot of times you will see, like for example, town center looks pretty urban when you go in there, but in reality, over 50% of town center is in preservation. And those are trees that would be safe forever.
Okay.
And you really can't see that because you have that urban kind of face where you're going to have buildings close to the road. The way they design town center, it kind of appears that it's like really urban. So, you know, and some other factors that are involved with, you know, I can speak for Palm Coast, right? When before we were a city a long time ago, a lot of it is pine plantation. I mean, our oak hammocks are pretty rare, you know, and a lot of our oak hammocks that we have are already under preservation. One of the things of our partnerships that we have with Flagler County, DEP, and getting some funds, you know, of purchasing where our linear trail is and where all those oak trees are now, you know, we were able to do that early on. We still have some out there, but a lot of them are a lot of pine trees. So when development occurs, you're going to do more than pine trees. You're going to do shade trees. So in the long run, you know, you're going to have that diversity of tree types. And another factor, I guess, that hampers things when it comes to saving trees. I think someone mentioned about developing next to a tree. You got to be careful of that. But you know, we're not fortunate in Palm Coast where our topography is. You know, some areas you go 6 inches and you're groundwater.
Right.
So a lot of times you can't save these trees because in order to develop, you're going to have to put fill on the property anyway because you know this is Florida. So sometimes we can't. But you know we are going through our comprehensive plan process now, And, from our community, we're hearing a lot about trees,
Yeah.
environment, of course, and that is something, are we doing enough? Are we doing enough for buffers?
Right.
Keeping natural buffers, those kinds of things. But those are the type of things that we will, kind of reevaluate and look at in our comprehensive plan.
What is it, 16 years in a row, Tree City USA?
Yeah, 16 years of road tree, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Pumco says, hats off to you
Yeah,
guys.
that's right, yeah.
Okay, thank you. See, that was good to share.
Yeah,
Okay.
feel good about it, yeah. Yes, sir?
If I would reiterate, right, if this gets out, if the public wants to have a takeaway, what Ray said is important about the comp plan and the LDC. Both the county and the city are going through those updates.
Right now.
And we've done the surveys. I think we've all heard from the citizens about tree canopy and the preservation of our natural environment. So I think those are important components to when we go to redo and reevaluate the comp plan.
So you all do have the ability to put some protections or layers in there.
Absolutely, and Ray said there are some, right? The county is in the process of updating its right now, so within the next month or two, it'll be published to where some gaps that were in our code are going to be addressed to further protection of mature tree canopy and buffers. So it's up front and center, and I think, we regulate it basically through the LDC, through the Land Development Code is where we stipulate those, and we're continuing to, this one will be a stopgap for us, and then when the whole Land Development Code is open for review, then we'll look at continued best practices that have been implemented.
So can citizens right now participate in that process, or not until you do the whole one?
No, well, ours will be at public meetings, so when
Okay.
we bring it forward, it'll go to planning board, it'll come to the commission.
Got you.
But the other one will have more general public input with all of our stakeholders when we open that up. It won't be till after we complete the comprehensive plan.
It's too bad, it's too bad that so much clear cutting has already occurred, but I'm glad to hear that you're addressing that.
I just had.
Yes.
Oh, you finished?
Yeah, go ahead.
Couple of things. At the Northeast Florida Regional Meeting last week, this came up, and Annie brought it up. And can we get some information from other places, how they've improved on this? There's a development up in Clay County right now is really looking at that hard. Like, none of the houses are going to have grass in there, but they're going to do a lot to preserve, have clusters, preserve things better. But St. Augustine or St. Johns County said that they did a tree study on what we can do for their land development code and all that. And you have a balance here, and that is, we also worry about the cost of housing. And the tree regulations can have a big impact. They said if we, the head of one of the commissioners who was looking at this up there, said that if we put into effect everything that people wanted on trees, the cost per house would go up $200,000. So there is a balance there between saving the trees. If you have to build a dike or a dam around a tree to save it, that's not cheap when you do the fill. So and I'll also point out that probably Grand Haven, where I live, was pretty clear cut. It's mostly fill. But go to Grand Haven now, and it's tree lined. There are mature trees, and a lot of them are oaks.
Better or
So
worse.
it can be fixed in the long run, but there's a cost to everything. I have one other question.
Yes.
Are we done with the tree?
I would just say it's a balance, right? It's a fair balance. It's not.
But that was
balanced right
interesting
now.
in St. John's, looking at it, that there are a lot of people who have a lot of ideas about trees, and they're good, but if you put them all in effect,
I'd want to know who was telling me that.
I could tell you that, but
Yeah.
They did a study on it, and they are going to improve their preservation of trees. What they're saying is, though, they're not going to do the $200,000 per house
Right,
version.
balance.
They'll do some
Yeah.
lesser version of that, and I think that's what are there lessons to be learned from that?
Sure.
Because they've gone through that. My other question on non-trees is, and I get a lot of questions too, I'm not on the school board, but I get questions about the school. Can school impact fees can be used to build something like a competitive swimming pool for the school system? It would be
No.
an increase in capacity because you don't have it now.
I don't think so.
I would say no.
I've heard you could, but that it's been done other places.
But the county could build a municipal swimming pool.
We could do
An
lots of
aquatic
things.
center.
That's not my
I think it'd
question.
be great for the
That's
county
not
to
my
build an
question.
aquatic center for
The only place
the
I see
entire
with
county to
this, you
use.
do have a lot of money in the school impact fee budget now. What
That's
happens-
already earmarked.
I think it's a capacity thing. I think you would be improving the school capacity
Yeah.
to.
But it's
like
a
building
great
gym.
benefit to
It would
the
be like
whole
building a gym.
community, right?
Well,
Right, Commissioner?
No,
Like, I
this is-
mean, you have
this is-
senior citizens
I-
that would use that,
Colin,
parents, and it's, I mean.
this has, these are just questions, honest
Fine,
questions I
fine,
got.
fine.
I'm just, so it's
I
just a
think the
question.
rationale is it's seats, right? Isn't it based on seats?
We'll look at it.
Yeah.
Just take a look. A lot of people admit, there is a group, as you know.
Oh, I know.
I wanted to just ask that question, that's all.
I just,
Yes, imagine what group that
one
is.
question when you mentioned trees. The reason why Bunnell has only 2 lanes, one coming into Bunnell and one leaving Bunnell on 100 is because the citizens of Bunnell raised Cain when DOT said we wanted to 4-lane it. And that's why, and they wanted to protect the oak trees. Of course, the state said, okay, we were gonna pay for it. And we did lose some oak trees on that road, because they went ahead and repaved it and changed the road to having a center turn lane instead of the parking lanes on each side of the road. So just to let you know, if you want to save trees in your city, it's been done by just stopping DOT from making a road, so.
Fair enough, noted. Any other additional new business? No? Okay, I guess we can open it up for public comment. Would anyone from the public like to make a comment? Don't all rush up at once.
Hold it to 3 minutes.
Yeah. All right, I don't see anyone approaching. I'm going to go ahead and close public comments. Is there anything else anyone would like to add before we wrap up and we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, yeah.
Just want to thank everybody. I know this is.
Yes, this will be my last meeting.
Our
This is
last
been a
meeting,
privilege.
so
Yeah, there you go.
This has been a privilege working with all of you.